Coming up on this episode of Conversations from the Cave.
We did a show a couple of weeks back, and it was about sex dolls. You know, our sex dolls are
men's sex dolls.
Because typically men are the ones, it seems, that purchase these. Statistically. So now we are going to be asking or begging the question, are sex toys okay?
Conversations from the Cave is a raw self-help podcast dedicated to discussing men's issues. From pornography to parenting, from religion to real life, from learning to loving. We discuss the real issues that affect real men every day. Join us each week for powerful, revealing Conversations from the Cave. Now your host, Kirk Kennedy.
Thanks for tuning in. This is Conversations from the Cave, and we are live with the CFTC crew. Let's go around the room and make sure everybody's checking in. To my right.
Hey, this is Mustang. Very excited about tonight's topic.
All right. And right next to Mustang, we've got Bounty Hunter.
Bounty Hunter here. Not real sure about the topic tonight, but we'll see. Let's go.
And we can't forget Nola73. Check in for us, sir.
You know, this is your boy Nola73. Meet you where you at.
So tonight's topic is a little different than the ones that we've had recently, although we're on a roll.
Right. Yeah.
So Mustang.
I knew you were going to ask me what it was. Are you guys going to? So we did a show a couple of weeks back, and it was about sex dolls. You know, our sex dolls are
men's sex dolls.
Because typically men are the ones, it seems, that purchase these. Statistically. So now we are going to be asking or begging the question: are sex toys okay? Is this something that's okay? And, you know, I think we may have varying opinions. We may all have the same opinion. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I want to say something.
Yeah.
Before we even dive into this, because I'm looking at all the faces in here. They're like, oh, my gosh. Because sometimes we don't say the topic until we open up the mic.
And that would be one of these days today.
So this is one of those
Poor Bounty didn't know till a minute and a half ago.
But I can tell you.
It feels a lot like a sucker punch.
Yeah.
So
I want to say a couple of things. So when we did the show on the dolls, right?
Mm-hmm.
I thought we did a pretty fair, even-handed. I know that you had some strong opinions about the dolls and the use of them and felt like that wasn't so really good for us to use.
I definitely think that's not. Yeah,
you had some strong opinions. You had some strong. But you know what was interesting? So I went on the internet after we did that show. Mm-hmm. Actually, I tend to send the show out before I broadcast it at large to a small select group of individuals that I value their opinion, their feedback.
Yeah.
So a couple of the people on the panel of reviewers were like, what the heck did I just listen to? And many of them were women like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. This is terrible.
Is that right?
Yeah. And then I was like, it's not that much different than females' toys.
Yeah.
And there's a whole industry built up around the toy industry for women.
Oh, yeah.
So why is it now guys are such, they lambasted any guy with a doll. They were like, oh, they're terrible. They're this. Well, but I guarantee you, if you drop, we're not going to call the names of their toys, but if you say, but do you have one of these in your drawer? A lot of them are quiet.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
wait a minute. All's fair. What's good for the goose?
It's good for the gander.
It's good for the gander.
I want to get right into it and say, for me personally, I am 100% against it. I don't think that there is any need, unless I will say this. I'm going to say I'm 100% against it unless there is something absolutely medically, and you were in some kind of population of 0.00003 of all of the world, physically speaking. I don't think there's a need for a toy.
Wow, that's really strong.
That's my.
Well, you really drew the line way on the side.
I've got a very
you and the dolls. You were like so adamant about the doll thing, man. It was just you had no room for anybody who was suffering with a lack of companionship. You didn't see their need for a way of.
And it's not having. I think again, we've got to reach the heart of these people instead of trying to make these patches with these external sources. You know what I mean? If he's needing companionship, he doesn't need something that's going to please him physically 24/7 and never tells him no, never gives him crossword, never, has its own feelings or thoughts. We need to figure out what we need to do to get him actual human companionship. It is not the same.
Secondly, it creates a false sensation. And what I mean by that is there's no, like he said, you don't have the ability to be told no. So now you create a different you.
A persona.
No, well, not so much as a persona, but you create a different you when it comes down to how you sex the doll. And then if a woman does come into play, you don't know how to be gentle if you're being rough. Wow. So you're so used to doing it that way because you've been practicing for so long on something that wasn't real.
And that didn't say X, Y, and Z. Yeah, or don't do this. I'd prefer that. Or
right,
this.
Because,
and again, that would mean it's all physical. You know what I mean? As opposed to emotional.
Well, and that brings up another point. The whole idea of sexual intimacy, the Bible is very clear that is between a man and a wife, married in a relationship. Mm-hmm. And so anything that, like with pornography, like with a toy, like with a doll, that is all about you meeting your need, your way, on your time when you want. There's no consideration for anybody else in that. Part of intimacy in marriage is we're meeting the needs of this other person. That's why it's more important for you to wash the dishes at night or help her pick up the house, as opposed to just going to, hey, you're married to me. We're supposed to have sex now.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that. You bring up a very good point. Now, what about having that as a substitute? So instead of running out in the street, okay, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I know it. Yeah.
So
we know what you're doing.
So
we're onto you.
You're a guy who has needs and your wife is tired. So you decide that Susie Q Dolly Do can meet the need.
Hold on. Now we're talking about the toys.
Wait, but I'm just saying, but I want to see, I'm building a case here.
Okay.
Because what I'm saying is, so if a guy is saying, hey, I want to keep my marriage together. I have a drive. She doesn't drive as much. You know what I'm saying? She just isn't into it as much as I'm into it. So why not have that release so that everything else is at equal,
Good. That's a good statement.
Because women do that. Because that's what I'm getting to with the toys. The women are using the toys to meet a need if a man is not able to hang on.
Me and Mustang talked about a week or so ago, and we were just touching on this topic. And one of the things I said, and this is going to apply to this guy that's supposedly just want to get his kicks off. Every time a man reaches that climax,
okay,
he's giving away blood. He's giving away his genes.
Understood.
So it's for procreation. Mm-hmm. That's what it's for. It's not so that you just feel like, I just need to get rid of it. You've gotten rid of it, and it's going to a piece of silicone that can't reproduce, that have no reproduction organs. And so you just wasted one of God's children for nothing. You got self-gratification, but there was no reproduction act in place. So now it's a bigger part of sin because you're looking at pleasing the flesh.
Only. Is that the biggest issue for you? Is that the pleasing of the flesh is the center focus? Is that what all of you guys are saying? It's just that it's
I think it all falls into the same thing, whether we're talking about a doll, whether we're talking about pornography, whether we're talking about adultery,
right,
or any of those things. Those are all just selfish meeting of a physical, carnal need that completely disregards the purpose God had in it in the act in the first place.
I feel like
to the point that I mean, let's blow it up. All right.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to do that now.
Oh God.
They come pre-assembled, from what I understand.
What I was going to say.
No, go ahead. I'm listening to
you. The Bible says that the marriage bed is undefiled.
Right.
And so I would say that the whole sex toy thing, if it's something that you both mutually agree to as part of your whatever your
play,
then hey, some folks are more comfortable with stuff than others. But I mean, to me, that would be a case where
it's an individual preference.
Well, that's and I've had other friends that,
but it's not an end means to itself.
In other words, if you're using that as a tool to provide joy and gratification in a mutually expressive relationship, you feel like that might be the caveat to
the
usage, to never using it at all, versus an individual who grabs these toys for their own gratification and they have no intention of sharing their time, effort. What do you think about that, Mustang?
Well, I've had other friends that are, I believe, really close, obviously, to God, and they feel quite the same, and they're very open about, hey, listen, we do this and we do it together. It's not like we're out with other people or anything. Mm-hmm. I definitely disagree.
Okay.
Go ahead, Noah.
No. We're going to be right back because I want to get more into this. This is great, but we got to take a station break right now. Give me a 5 on that one.
You're listening to the Conversations from the Cave show with host Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew. CFTC is available for digital download on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spreaker.com. Want your church or men's group to host a CFTC Live Man Up conference? Contact the crew on Facebook or visit ProVoxMediaGroup.com/Man Up 2018. Now, back to the Man Cave with Kirk Kennedy and the CFTC crew.
We're back with CFTC crew, and I'm your host, Kirk Kennedy. We were in the middle of the thoughts from Mustang, who says that he's having some problems. We have a slight difference of opinion between our crew. So one crew member says, well, if you're using the toys as part of a fantastic fun and frolic between a loving mutual couple, then it's possible that could be okay. Now, Mustang, of course, has a much different viewpoint, and I'm going to, of course, canvass NOLA, so start queuing up yours. But apparently, Mustang, you still don't think that the usage of a toy or some sort of tool, we'll call it a tool, if we will, gratification isn't...
Yeah, sex toy. A lot of people, like I said, we want to give different, politically correct names.
Okay.
But yeah, it's sex. It's a toy that's made for sex. But I feel like the same thing. A lot of people back in the day, I thought, pornography would be good to share with your spouse. Let's look at that, and let's do that.
He came around the other way with that one. Okay,
let's do that, and we'll be excited together and look at this. But hey, we're just doing it to increase the our libidos or excite the marriage, spice it up, whatever the case is. The same thing with the toy. I believe when you introduce those things, you begin using them more as a crutch, and then those things actually, I believe, they begin to poison the water. And then you begin to feel as though, and I haven't used one or ever used any of it, but I did with pornography. It was something like that when I thought, let's give that a try. And then all of a sudden, you kind of feel dependent on it. And now if you go back to the regular old boring sex. And
it's hard to use boring and sex in the same sentence.
Regular standard. Long story short, I believe looking at pornography with your spouse, getting a sex toy with your spouse, doing those things with your spouse is a symptom of a deeper issue. That's my personal.
So you actually feel that the utilization of a sex toy is a potential crutch. In other words, it's something that has to then stay interwoven because people become dependent on it.
And then you begin getting bored. Yeah, the same with pornography. Nobody in this room who, if you have ever watched pornography, is watching the same thing that they may have watched 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. It started off with just probably a naked woman, and that was it. Now, all of a sudden, it's 3 men and a bear and 2 women and a balloon and a blimp. And you're like, whoa, how did I get here? You know what I mean? So, I mean, you're like, whoa, what, so I think that's the problem. I believe it poisons and it's safest to stay away from it.
Agreed. Let me piggyback with, I always come at you. This is your boy Nola 73 with the realist. So, there was a time in my life where I was dating a young lady, and I was one of those brothers that was called a 3-minute brother. So
no reason why.
Yeah. So what she did was she said, you know what? Before you come over, I want you to get rid of the first one. So she bought me something so that I can get rid of the first one. What I found out is that it became a crutch, but it didn't strengthen me mentally. Once I understood from an older man that it's a mind thing, you need to know how to hold back and not release. That means sometimes when it's real good, you might have to back away from it, let it subside. And I'm hoping that they follow. I'm hoping that everybody's following because I'm trying to clear everything up.
Yeah.
And then go back into it.
Thankfully, you goes into self-edit, and I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. So, and I'm trying over here. I really am trying to use my words. So what happened is, over time, I've learned that I can go a long time, 8 to 9 days, without.
Oh wow.
That
release.
Release.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
And what it does is it taught me how to perform better because I know how to hold back. And so when you start learning mentally how to hold back, the body starts to adapt.
Let me ask you, I really want to ask him something.
Okay.
With that, do you find that when you're with your spouse, if I can ask this, with your spouse, you don't have to use any kind of crutch? It's just about the two of you together, and that's about it. That's it. It's wonderful.
That's it. Because when God said he created us and he made us perfect, everything that a man created as a substitute, we already have. So if you go out and you buy a toy for